audience interaction, I think, is such an important part of these conversations. So our goal today, as we talk about becoming an employer of choice, is to share ideas and insights, talk about how we've tackled challenges during these really unprecedented and unusual economic and employment times. But I would love for you to take notes, think about questions you have, and then at the end, I'd like to give us about 10 minutes or so to do a Q&A with our experts up here. In the past, I've shared my cell phone and I've said, text me your questions and I'll ask them for you. But in this case, I'm hoping that everyone feels comfortable in this space, even standing up and asking your question. Again, we have thought leaders, we have experts, professionals right here in front of you, and this concept of becoming an employer of choice during this really tight talent market is not just a fascinating one, but it is a critical one. I was reading this morning, a report came out from the BBC, and this great resignation started in 2021 or so. And this BBC report said, buckle your seatbelts because the Great Resignation is not likely to slow down anytime soon. Holy cow, we're a year into this. So, what is our best defense against employees resigning? I think it's really it's what we're going to learn about here in this conversation. So I'll take a seat. I'm going to turn the tables over to these amazing women. I'll ask you to first, each of you introduce yourselves. Tell us your name, tell us the company you work for, what you do, so we can get a flavor then of who you are and your role in helping your organizations become employers of choice. Since you're right next to me.
Am I standing up?
Oh, you okay, good.
My name is Kristi Linsmeier. I'm a senior engineer and group leader with the Szymik Group. We're a small to mid-sized local engineering consulting firm here in Milwaukee. We started in 1991. I started there in 1994 as an intern and haven't left. So it's become a good place to work. As a group leader, I have some of these HR type, ensuring our company is a place that's appealing for future employees and that our employees can grow at. That's it. Fabulous.
I'm Sheila Casey. I'm with Ogden Company. I'm the HR director. We have been in business since 1929. There's been a lot of iterations of our company and changes along the way. I started probably 3 months before the pandemic. So I was kind of cast into this apparently, like, you know it all. You know everything about the pandemic, so you handle it, which was fun because I didn't know anything about a pandemic at the time. But I handle a lot of, I'll say I'm a generalist, so I do between employee relations, I do hiring, I do performance reviews, benefits, everything that comes under the HR for multi-state and a lot of different organizations under our roof. So keeps me busy.
I'm Schimick. I'm the VP of Human Resources at Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry. We are located in Manitowoc. We have actually 3 foundries. We have 3 unions. 3 unions actually just in Manitowoc. We have multi-state foundries as well. And a foundry, we melt aluminum and brass and make castings. So it's I oversee HR and safety in all 3 of our locations. So, just like you, generalist type role, we've got quite a decent sized HR and safety team that report up through me. So.
I'm Nicole Donnell. I'm with Mars Solutions. I'm our VP at Mars. We do staffing and recruiting. In the beginning, we had a focus specifically on IT, but in our most recent years, we've branched out into engineering, accounting, finance, general labor, and we've hired different recruiters for those teams. Besides that, we have a talent creation program called Returnship. So we're not just, poaching and looking for talent, we're actually creating talent for employers out in the market.
Can everyone hear okay? How about you in the back?
A little louder.
A little louder, okay. We're going to crank up those outside voltages. All right. Thank you all very much, and I love the fact that we have so many different perspectives as well on this issue. from staffing and recruiting to HR, middle of it, engineering, someone who's been with a company for so long. Another report that came out this morning, you probably saw, about the labor market and the GDP. So the economy shrunk less than we expected it would. The labor market is stronger than we thought it would be. It's fascinating to hear these predictions on one side, and then boom, the reports hit. The reality is different. I'm curious, with all of the ups and downs, how are your companies doing? How are your employees doing? Michelle?
How are our employees doing? I was just saying that I wish I could be in that breakout session next door about the mental health, because that's really top of mind right now, and something that's really impacting our organization, especially since the pandemic. And I mean, we have production workers that are entry level. They're not a lot of professional level people, and they have real issues outside of work. Our main concern is those mental health issues that have come from the pandemic, and its impact on safety. I mean, in a foundry, safety it's a very unsafe environment that we have at our foundry, and if they're not mentally there, it could create a lot of problems. So I think that's one of the big things that I've noticed, and the impact on our workforce since the pandemic.
Let's put a pin in that, because I want to come back to mental health in just a little bit. Anyone else?
Sure. I'll just say that we've had to pivot a lot. I mean, you get one day where you think, masks are off and you're all good to go, and then masks are back on and you're not. You have to keep people working. We are in the real estate business, so we have to make sure people have their housing and that they have somebody to talk to and go to when they have issues. So we had to make our employees available, but make everything safe. Then it was back in, and we were kind of pivoting that way, getting people in like 3 days a week, and trying to figure out the best way to have people in and working with other people. And then it was back out again. And so you just had to be flexible and be there for the employees when they were having issues. As you had mentioned earlier, the EAP, employee, in case some of you don't know, the Employee Assistance Program, which you can have them go to or mention as a source. A lot of employees don't feel comfortable going that way, but you do want to make sure that they are appreciated, or they were appreciated during going through this, and what they were having as their life between home and work was just getting muddy.
Nicole?
Yeah, so I would say during the pandemic, we used that opportunity to be creative. We have that new program. We launched it in 2020.
And I'm going to ask you to speak up just a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
So our people in the back can hear.
So during the pandemic, because I'm not going to say the other word, I don't want to put more money in that chart. We used that as an opportunity to be creative by launching a new program, bringing women back into the workforce. So that was one of the many things that we did. As far as employees, we have an amazing director of HR, Jonah, who, really runs our company. So he took care and made sure everyone was safe, and, capacity in the office and who was going to be in the office on what day, and did all of the coordination that way. But I would say, we took that opportunity to really be creative and think of some other business opportunities.
Well, not really. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask a question. So this returnship of women, because that was another impact. And Manitowoc is a very rural community. The biggest, Green Bay is like 30 minutes north. Sheboygan's about 30 minutes south. And what happened with us was a lot of daycares and child care centers closed.
So this was during the pandemic.
Yes.
This is really kind of what started
Yes.
us on the track that we are today.
Yes, and so I'm curious, did you have that as kind of an issue with bringing these women back into the workforce and through that program, and how did you deal with that, with the lack of childcare? Because that's a huge issue for us.
Yeah, so we have a pretty robust program, and somebody in the program that helps them find childcare, help them with, whatever needs. Because it's a big deal if you're out of the workforce for a year or 5 years, but some of these women have been out for 10 years. So even the thought of leaving your kids with somebody and going back to work is a big deal. So we have a whole support program around that, and outside volunteers too. But yeah, that was a big issue with daycares closing, and I think it was due to limited staff a lot of the times with the daycares, so. Yeah.
We have a smaller company, so we're not able to do that as much, but we did have to become more flexible with the employees and work with them on an individual basis. And,
the pandemic played a fascinating role in, I think, the way we're all thinking about being employers, the way we're all thinking about how we're hiring talent, how we're recruiting for talent, how we're working to retain talent. And it's interesting when I've heard people say, I just want things to go back to the way things were before 2019 and before. You're shaking your head. Many of us, I think especially women, don't really want things to go back to the way they were before. So I do want to talk a little bit more about kind of the creative thinking the pandemic spurred, but I'd love to hear kind of how the pandemic impacted your organizations and kind of what led to some of this innovative thinking. So, I'll start with Blake.
Like I said, I'm an engineer. I'm more comfortable going to a foundry, looking at castings being produced than maybe some of this stuff. And a bit of a creative. We actually, we weren't supposed to say the C word earlier, but during the pandemic, we started using a lot of different C words. Communication, connection was a big one for us. Now that we were all at home and trying to still connect with each other and work collaboratively was difficult, and figuring out how to do that. And not just project related, but then personal related too. We started doing these employee spotlights where we would tell the top 10 interesting things about yourself. We had a list of questions. What's your favorite book, your favorite movie? Just all those personal kind of things that maybe we didn't get to experience anymore. And we've continued that now that we're back in the office. Maybe that's creative, maybe it's not, but again, to kind of bring that personal aspect into our everyday business life as well.
Was there a moment, Sheila, during the pandemic where you realized, oh my gosh, we have to do things differently because of the impact on
because
employees?
it just wasn't ending. It was, I would say shortly after I started, I realized that it wasn't going to be the same. We also trying to find experienced people in the field was very difficult because nobody wanted to move right away because they were still in shock over what was going on. So they didn't know if they should stay or move. And at that point, we decided to, I would say, spend more on the career pathing and training. So we were able to bring people in, for instance, myself, I had been out of the workforce for 20 years. I had to basically start all over, but it wasn't like I didn't have the brains or the ambition, it was just I was doing something else. So when we started looking at people to bring in, we kind of looked there. Like if they didn't have the experience in exactly what we were looking for, could they be trained? Could they be somebody that we could accelerate through the process? So that's kind of what we did because of the pandemic.
Sure.
The impact on our business, so we, from, I think it was from March to July during the pandemic, we had probably about a 40% downturn in our business. One of the biggest things during that time was that we wanted to keep all of our employees employed. So we made sure that we put everything in place, that we didn't lay off and deplete the knowledge that we have at the Foundry, because it's not like people walk out of high school and know how to work at a Foundry. The work is very different, and it's only taught by doing it. And so that was one of the things, but it was July, I think it was July, was when all of a sudden our business started booming again. So from July of 2020, we're July 2022 now, we've been working overtime. We've been working 7 days a week overtime. Because other foundries that didn't do those things ended up closing down. And that's actually, we've acquired 2 of those foundries since in the last 2 years that just could not make it work. One of the foundries that we acquired, they let all their people go. And so now we're trying to build that knowledge base back up there and do those things. So I think that's been the biggest impact for them. They're tired. Our employees are just tired because we're asking so much of them. We've got 740 employees across all of our locations, but just in Manitowoc alone, we have 73 open positions. And so we've really...
That's not stressful.
That's just Manitowoc. I've got Indiana, yeah, so it's over 100. I don't know what today, how many it is, but yes, it is stressful. But we've also, we tried to just hire anybody and say, we need bodies, let's teach them how to do it. That didn't work. We had 100% turnover of our new hires during that period, so we took a step back. And we really started to target things like, we do personality tests now, even for our production, new hire production employees, because we want to know. I mean, we felt like we were sticking, round pegs into square holes, or square pegs into round holes. I said that backwards. And so now we're really trying to see who fits in these different roles that we have, so that we can keep them. The other thing we did was similar to what you did, was invested in training. We actually got a Wisconsin Fast Forward grant, and $200,000 grant that we're in the middle of right now, and we created a dedicated training center just for our finishing workers, because that's where we bring in the new, most entry-level folks into our organization, and they spend 2 weeks in there, and they learn how to do the job safely. And we've got, right now, I think we're only at 20% turnover of our new hires. I'd have to check that, but it's right around. So, I mean, it's changed everything for us. Just, trying to do that. But it was really about how are we going to retain these folks. And I know I say this and people probably want to throw something at me, but Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry has been there for, over 100 years. We have name recognition in Manitowoc, so everybody knows who we are. We every day we have 5 to 10 people walk off the street and bring in a paper application to apply there. And so we're fortunate that way. But the ones that we do select, we really have taken a more of a focus on how do we retain them and keep them there. So that has been very different for us.
Do you think historically, and I guess I'm talking pre-pandemic, have we taken employment for granted?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. And really what I want to do is, again, I'm just grabbing context here because I want to lean in just a minute. Lessons learned. And I want to lean into how we're applying these lessons learned so that we're leading differently, so that we're building cultures differently. But let's talk just for a minute about just that fact. How have we taken employment for granted?
We've really, over the last maybe half dozen or so years, recognized that we're not there for them, they're here for us, or vice versa, whatever, but really focusing on career development for them. They're not just showing up and punching the clock, but we're really helping evaluate what their interests are, where their skills are, and helping them pursue and go down the path that they're interested in. Individual Development Program, I think is what we call it, IDP. And rather than just a once-a-year check-in, kind of a performance review of them, we're sort of making that a two-way street and checking in more frequently, quarterly, I think now is our plan. So how are we doing? Are we making progress? Are we giving you what you need, the tools, et cetera, to explore your career and go where you want to go?
And these were not done so intentionally or thoughtfully before the
Correct.
Nicole, your company has such a unique vantage point because you work with so many different employers. How have you seen companies kind of take employees for granted, take that experience of being an employee, being an employer for granted, and how are their mentalities beginning to shift?
Yeah, I mean, you hear it too when you're talking to those candidates. The recruiters come to me a lot and say, oh my gosh, I just talked to this person, they've been at this company for 25 years and they've been taken for granted that so-and-so doesn't even know who this person is in their company and that's their direct boss. And you hear a lot of stories like that, and I think that's a huge reason why people are now moving to other companies. And we've been able to kind of consult, because those typically are our clients, consult with our clients on that and help them on that side as far as those types of stories and why people are leaving. Another thing that we're seeing, and one thing we've kept in place, is our hybrid model and that flexibility. It's made a huge difference for me personally, having kids at home, my husband working a very similar job to myself, we're both always gone. Having that hybrid model is huge. Being able to, because I have an hour commute, not have that hour commute all the time, and comfortable making dinner, not going to bed at 7:30 at night. But yeah, helping other clients realize, not everybody can do that type of model, but there are different flexibility things that you can do for employees, like maybe a 4-day work week and then the Friday off, unless you're working so much overtime, obviously. But there are other ways to be able to be flexible with employees.
So within this framework, I think, you're seeing companies thinking differently. Each of you is working for organizations that are beginning to think and act differently. The concept of employer of choice, it's not a new concept. We've heard this concept before, but you see it in the headlines a lot more. You see it on the front page of, Fortune magazine or Forbes or Inc., where they're really talking about companies who are becoming employers of choice. I'm curious, for your perspective, why, this concept of employer of choice, it's not just a headline, right? I mean, it is something as employers that you can earn. And why is this so important today? Michelle, you were nodding your head.
Well, I think it's so important because there are so few people in the workforce now, and everybody's competing from the same talent pool. So you have to differentiate yourself, and you have to just take care of the people. I mean, my whole thought process is if you take care of the people, your customers will be happy. No matter.
That's hard, isn't it? We work with some employers, some companies, and they're managing traditional top line and bottom line metrics. Mm-hmm. Caring for people is not something that's taught in business school.
It's not.
So how does that happen? This is a pivotal shift. We can't take advantage of the sales opportunities out there without the people. The people are leaving us or they're going to different companies. How do you integrate this into your culture, into your company as a business strategy?
Yeah, it's been very difficult. I will say that our CEO, he gets it. He just gets it, and he is all about the people. Now, not to say he's not about the bottom line and watching the numbers and things like that, but whenever we are talking about like a decision around an employee or things like that, he's very involved with that. And he wants to know that we're doing the right things, not only for the business, but mostly for the employee, and treating them with respect. He's the type of person, he's got a very open door, so I mean, he'll meet with people from the production floor, they'll call him or message him on Facebook Messenger and say, hey, I'd like to meet with you, I've got some concerns, and the next day they're meeting with him. He'll just pick people and take them out to lunch from the production floor. It's not, and he's out there all the time. And so he is very active in HR relations with employees, and I think that's where it's got to come from. It's got to come
I
from
agree,
the
it
top.
has to come from the top down, and some of it takes some training with people and coaching and trying to have them understand the new workforce. But it does take some time with us. We did have to make some mistakes originally, and we came back and decided, we've got now revitalized our employee recognition and our employee engagement committees so that we could definitely reach out to people and that they knew they were being heard. Much more appreciation. I mean, it's so simple if you think about it, that if you just start appreciating your employees, that's basically what they want. They want to know that they're spending that 8 hours in a place, 8 or more hours in a place that's a positive work environment and that they're appreciated for what they do. I mean, on the other hand, you will have people that, no matter what you do, it doesn't work, and they will leave. But then you have to realize that's not part of your culture, and that if they're not going to buy into what you're trying to do, then you hope they find something. We've had people that have left and have wanted to come back because they realized they thought it was greener, the grass was greener, and came back.
And to that point, we've recognized that some of what we need to do is brag more about who we are and what we do and the great projects we're involved with, the great other clients and companies we're involved with. I think maybe more so young people today, look at that salary and that's all they're concerned about. So we've had to really educate our employees on what the other benefits and compensation really looks like specific details. At the end of the year, it's your salary plus the 401k match that's really generous, plus the profit sharing that's quite generous, plus, and really spell it out for people because they're looking at that salary number.
Total compensation package.
Compensation package, yeah.
Are these ideas generally coming from the top down, or how are you engaging your employees to become part of these solutions that the company's developing? Do you do employee surveys?
We've done a couple. We do like an annual survey, and it's interesting to see who's going to answer the survey and who's not. Because you've got people that have just disengaged, and there's nothing that's going to bring them back. But you've got those people that want to make a better place, and you want to let them know that that's what you're looking for. That's what you want.
One thing I think I recognize that there's also a place for those people who want to disengage. They may have their niche and they may not grow and become a leader, but they're still an important part of the team. And, I've got people we've pushed to get out there and get involved in trade organizations or networking. And one woman in particular, she's just so shy. She wants to put her head down and do her job, and she's great at it, but she doesn't want all this other stuff, and that's okay. That's her spot.
Nicole, you nodded your head when I was asking about employee surveys.
Oh yeah, we do an employee survey once a year. We've been thinking about changing that to doing it twice a year. And then also, I think, creating a community within all of your employees. So we have a lot of remote workers. We have an office in India. We have a big group of people who are not always together. So doing these online events, creating those relationships, learning about different cultures. Our company is so diverse, and that's one of my favorite things about working at Mars, is there's different religions and race and everything, and it's amazing. So getting to learn about other people and what they're doing, and our indoor office in India works the same hours we do, but when we're having lunch, they're having dinner, and having those discussions. Oh, what are you having for dinner? This is what I'm having for lunch, and creating those relationships. Because when you have those relationships and you have friends at work, you're more likely to stay where you are.
And that's a good point. That's actually one of our, strategies is creating those relationships at work. And we have about 90% of the people that come in and apply are referrals from other employees, which is huge. And we really, 3 years ago when we started the referral bonus program, we had 0 employee referrals, and now we've got 90% of them. So now we already know they're walking in the door, and they have a friend at work because they know somebody already. And that's huge, and I think it affects our retention and everything.
It says a lot about your company, too. I mean, other people look at that and say, they're bringing people in because they like it.
Right.
And so we definitely started the referral bonus like 2 years ago that increased our hires, and I think it's made such a difference, as she said, with having the friendships at work, but also having that pipeline that you didn't have before necessarily.
Yeah, and you had asked about where the ideas are coming from. We get them in a number of different ways, so we don't do like an annual survey. 3 years ago when I started there, we did. We just weren't getting the engagement on it at all. It was normally just the negative people that filled it out. So I talked a little bit already about the open door policy that we have, all the way up to the CEO. That is one way that we get a lot of ideas. And then we also started, and don't cringe, we started an employee Facebook page. And we were told, when Sachin and I did this, we were told, well, only old people use Facebook. I'm like, well, we're not old. But it's been, it can get challenging. So we've got people who are on admin hold on our employee Facebook page because they try to dip their toe too far in that water. But for the most part, they're very open. They are very honest on that page when they're happy about things, when they're unhappy about things. And so we find that that's where we're getting a lot of our feedback and ideas and thoughts.
That's great. Creating relationships at work, referral bonuses, open door policies all the way up to the CEO. You're increasing employee communications, creating an employee Facebook page that creates really some opportunities for employees to engage with each other and solve problems as well. I want to get into some of the kind of more touchy subjects of kind of employee relations. My team about a year ago did a statewide survey called the Insights Research, and we really wanted to find out the driving factors behind the resignations of women in the state of Wisconsin. What is the impact of the pandemic on working women in our state? And the responses were pretty eye-opening. I can't say that they were all surprising, but one of the things that was surprising to me is the majority of women who were considering quitting their jobs said they were considering quitting because they felt undervalued. And mental health issues were really at the top of the list. So if the feeling of being undervalued is really a driver, a reason that people are considering leaving their jobs, maybe they're not talking about how they feel undervalued. How can employers who are seeking to become employers of choice, seeking to retain and recruit employees, how can you tap into helping employees feel valued? Nicole, I'm coming to you because you're nodding your head.
Yeah, this resonates with me a lot. I left the position I was in the company I was at because of that reason a few years ago to come to Mars specifically, because I was feeling undervalued, just not a good culture fit for me. And then coming to Mars and having our CEO, Rashi, just once in a while popping up and saying, hey, what you did with the marketing team was really great. And it was something that was so small that I didn't think really mattered. But she does that with everyone, right? Everyone in the company. Congratulations. We have a Teams chat that's called the water cooler chat. And it's where anyone can say thanks for this, thanks for that, post pictures of their pets or their kids in the background doing something. But she's involved with every aspect of the business. She's really a great leader. I think there's not one person in our company that wouldn't feel valued because of her, because of our leadership team, and that trickles down, right? So us as leaders in our team, we do the same thing for our employees, and we make sure that everybody in the company feels that connection and knows that they're valued.
How are your companies tapping into that to ensure, again, I think we've traditionally seen employees as, I have a job open, this is the position description, this is the pay, I'm hiring you, go do your job. This concept of feeling valued. In fact, when we released this study, I was on the radio talking about it, and I got a phone call from a CEO after this live interview who said, oh my gosh, I've never thought about whether my employees feel valued. That's huge. So they're not just there to take a paycheck and fill a position. How do you, on the path to becoming employers of choice, ensure that your employees do feel valued? So you talked about recognition. Talk about some of the other things your companies are doing today.
As I said, we have the committees that we have. We have a charity committee, we have a employee engagement, and an education committee that we ask people to join in so that they feel that they're part of something else above and beyond the company. Like that they're reaching out to the community, and I think that helps them. They have a voice, it's completely run by them, except for the budgets. It's pretty much their thoughts and ideas that go forward. So that's one way in trying to get more people involved in that. And I think when we have new people, they're so excited about joining it. The more people like I've interviewed lately too are very interested in that, over the pay, over other things, that they want to feel that they're doing something of value.
We have just about 10 minutes left. I'd love to leave a few minutes at the end for questions. So in the next 5 minutes or so, I would love to hear your thoughts, directed at our audience on two levels. So one of them, if you're in a position where you are a decision maker and you have a chance to begin to influence the culture, to help your company along that journey of becoming an employer of choice, where do you get started? If you're a company that's not on that journey yet, where do you start?
I'll say it's baby steps, and I'll say that I think it can be daunting when you are looking at making an entire change. So if you do one thing at a time and you just kind of move forward on that, I think that's whether it's starting a club at work or having a after work meeting or something like that. I just think it's you do one thing and they'll start appreciating it and gaining more trust in what you're doing as well.
Yeah, I think you have to start by just taking stock of what you're already doing. I mean, you may not realize you are doing some of those things. And then also taking stock of what you feel like needs to be done. And like you said, baby steps and just, start somewhere. Don't get paralyzed with it because you can't do it all at one time. And we're still on our journey and we have a long way to go. We're, and it's really about engaging with the other thought leaders in the organization and changing their hearts and minds to want to do these things and getting them to understand that it's important.
And I also could say, don't be afraid because we're all going to make mistakes. You're all going to figure out, okay, that didn't work, but what will work? And you have to be able to change if you need to.
Well, our company's name is Mars, right? It's a planet. It's kind of a funny thing. It's an acronym after Rashi, her husband, and her 2 children, their first names. But out of that became this kind of culture where we're all known as Martians. And, we have the attire sometimes. We do funny memes within the company. Once in a while on our LinkedIn page, you'll see somebody that started new with the company and they have a Martian kind of background on them. So that culture piece has really taken off. I think, connecting with people you normally wouldn't connect, taking people to lunch that you don't know very well, starting small, like you said, those small things really make a big difference. And then it catches on and you find that the entire company starts doing those types of things and your culture changes slowly.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be big things. I mean, keep it simple. That's what we try to do. And I've come in with Sachin a couple times with this big, I know how to do this, and I've got this huge plan. And he's like, can't we just do this, this, and this? and it works, So keeping it simple is always good.
I came into a culture, a company that didn't want, I'll say that. When I first started, I would say, good morning, how are you? I was told, don't ask how they're doing. I know. I don't get that kind of culture. So it's taken a little, because I think they had just a negative idea of what was going on, or they didn't trust HR. And I think HR has changed. Yeah. So we're just not all the bad people anymore. We're just trying to make a good environment for people.
Right. So you're building relationships.
Yes.
The relationship side of HR.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, we find a lot of our new hires, or we groom them from internship while they're still in college. So we've tried to boost our intern program and take them to lunch at the beginning of the summer. And actually today is the end of summer, goodbye to our interns lunch. Just to try and build that culture that you're valued here.
And again, as you look out into the audience and you see all of these amazing individuals, a word of advice, if they're in a company where they're feeling like they're not valued, they're feeling like that company is not the employer of their choice at this point, are there questions they should be asking or things they could be doing right now to help their company along before making that choice to leave the organization?
I think speaking up, you have to have the courage to ask for what, to be treated and what you need to feel like you're a part of the team. I've been in situations where that is not easy, and I've not done it, and I've walked out because of it. But
do you wish if a great employee leaves and you didn't realize how they felt, do you really wish that they had spoken up?
Yes, yeah. I do.
I think that's really important for people to know. I think as women sometimes we kind of, I hate to say suffer in silence, but we really do. And I've actually lost employees who have thought that they couldn't speak up, they couldn't speak out about, a supervisor that they had that wasn't managing it properly. And I find out afterwards, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had known this. Yeah. So speak out, speak out.
Yeah, it's encouraging, or having the leaders encourage that open door policy, like you said. I mean, we have that same thing where people can talk to anybody at any time, and we have our chairman will be on a video, welcoming everybody very like hometown from his farm, things like that. That's good. Makes people feel more welcome and easy to talk to.
Kristi, any thoughts from your perspective?
No.
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
Yeah,
It is.
it's a tough one. Well, I appreciate all of your perspectives. We're just about up at the top of the hour, and I want to make sure that folks in the audience have a chance to ask some questions. I see at the back, do you feel comfortable standing up and asking your question? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Morgan Phelps. I'm the CEO of Colorful Connections. We're a diversity recruiting and retention firm. Something that you mentioned that resonates very much with those who we work with, and whether it's candidates or clients on a daily basis, is that concept of being valued. And oftentimes those people, candidates who leave jobs even without having another job lined up because they hadn't felt valued at work. And the gaslighting, the lip service, being the only one, and all that comes with it, simply weigh them down. So I'm curious, and they're being extremely selective with new companies, whoever they will work with, or whatever it is that they want to do next. So I'm curious, as we're talking about employer of choice, what you're also doing within your organization specifically for candidates of color and others from historically marginalized communities.
Well, being a woman, we're historically marginalized right there, right? But we're, one of the things that Manitowoc is not a very diverse community at all, which that's very frustrating for me. And that was one of our initiatives when we started. I think 3 years ago when I started, we only had 2 females in production. We now have 20. So we did a targeted recruitment campaign for women. We also felt like we weren't tapping into, there's a decent-sized Hispanic community there, and so we did targeted towards the Hispanic community. One of the other things that once we started doing that is, like you said, having groups. So having them come together, having the women come together, and what are your challenges? Yeah, I know our shower room isn't the greatest. What can we do about those things? Because we didn't have many women, so we only had a men's shower room, so we had to create a women's, and it's not that great. Things like that come along with trying to bring that more diverse workforce in, and just listening to them and asking them what they need to be successful. I mean, I think that's the most important thing, is just asking. Don't try to assume what those people need to be successful at your organization, and then being willing to make the changes to do it.
The research that we did also found that African American women were twice as likely not to feel comfortable sharing how they felt in their current work situation with a team member. So that concept of creating inclusive environments where you're listening is so important. Nicole, what are you seeing with the companies you're working with?
Yeah, so, well, us as a company, we're certified diverse, minority-owned, women-owned company, and 83% BIPOC diversity. So I think us as a company having that helps attract that. And we've been able to, some of our clients come to us because of that, and we've been able to tap into those different communities and groups out in the market and really get involved, not just surface level, but actually really dive in and get involved. And our program that we created, Returnship, that's all diverse women returning to the workforce, specifically, well, I would say almost all, maybe 95%. So helping companies diversify, especially in tech, with women, with people of color, with who we can.
And that really is a growing expectation of both consumers and prospective employees, is that companies take seriously their role being corporate citizens, and that inclusivity is vital. Morgan, thanks for that question. Yeah. Any other questions from the group? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Johanna. My husband and I started a fitness studio about a year ago, and we are currently in the hiring phase. We have had a couple of interviews, and my question is, do you have any advice to from now expanding into employees, not mess up in the beginning? So what can we do today before we have a first employee to become an employer of choice?
Great question. That's a great question.
I would say know your culture, know what you're looking for. and what you want your company to look like, and that's how you interview.
So your values, mission, values.
Yes, exactly. And that's obviously when you're going through business school, it'll tell you, get those in mind before you start anything. But it's amazing how much that impacts how you ask questions, or what you're looking for as an answer for some of the people that you're hiring. You want to make sure that they've got the same values and culture you're looking for.
Any other quick insights?
I would 100% agree with that. That's how we interview, based on our values.
All right, it sounds like it's time for us to wrap up. Would you ladies be willing to stay here for a little while if others have questions for